Gervonta Tank Davis, he makes it official. He will be fighting Lamont Roach. It's confirmed. PBC posted it. Tank posted it. March 1st, 2025. It's about to go down. Tank Davis, the other day, he posted the rescheduling of the Lamont Roach fight. And it's going to be on Amazon Prime. Pretty much what we already knew. The only big difference from previously is, one, it's not happening this year in 2024. It's happening in 2025, again, March 1st, my birthday month. Shout out to the Pisces. Shout out to the Aries. I'm an Aries. And the other big difference is, instead of it being in Houston, it'll be in New York at the Barclays Center, to be exact. Tank Davis says, basically, this is my second home. I'm fighting five head. And he's obviously taking a dig at Lamont Roach's forehead. So that's the latest. My thoughts, great. Tank back, amazing. Listen, there's so much I get right in this game. I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. If you're just tuning in, if you're a longtime subscriber, I appreciate y'all. Come to my channel for boxing news and information you can rely on. There's going to be different people that say different things, but a lot of them are habitual Tank haters. All they do is like talk bad about Tank, things of that nature. It's good to see Tank back. You know, and here's the thing is, the haters, notice people who have hate in their heart, they don't have consistency. That's something they lack, because you're not doing it from a good, honest place. When you're doing things with integrity, morals, values, virtues, and you're doing it out of the purity of your heart, you tend to move different. When you're hating and you're hateful, it's a different experience, right? So don't look for consistency from people who have no morals, right? So a lot of the Tank fans, they know what I'm talking about, because the Tank haters, they have no morals. They have no standards. So there's not going to be any consistency. The things that they praise other fighters for, they'll hate when it comes to Tank. For example, if Tank Davis fights a Lamont Roach, right, they'll say, oh, I don't like this opponent. And then someone like me will be like, what about activity? He's trying to stay active, couldn't get X, Y, and Z fights when Lamont Roach was available. Lomachenko was probably one of the earlier choices, and he might retire. So how are we blaming this on Tank? He's at least getting activity. You see, old media, they say they love activity when it's other fighters. Like, for example, Eddie Hearn got Jaron Ennis. They'll say, even though he's fighting David Avocado and Karen Chukadasian two fights that nobody wanted to see, at least Eddie's keeping him active. That's literally what people were saying. Like, this is some good thing. And then his fight with Virgil Ortiz just fell apart. But he had activity. Yeah, activity against people that nobody wanted to see him fight, right? And another thing, the haters, they talk about, oh, Tank, he's fighting a champion from a lighter weight class, moving him up. Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Boots Ennis just fell apart over weight, but people wanted to see the fight. That's the same exact scenario. You got Virgil Ortiz, who moved up, got a couple fights at 154 and has an interim belt. And you have Jaron Ennis, a one belt champion, IBF champion, the division below. And people wanted to see Virgil Ortiz move up Jaron Ennis and fight him. And he's a champion in the previous division. But when Gervonta Davis brings up Lamont Roach, a champion in the lighter division, people are mad. Make this make sense, people. Explain to me what the difference is, right? What's the difference between Virgil Ortiz at 54, and then he would have fought Jaron Ennis, would have to move straight up to 54 and immediately fight him. A guy who was a champion at welterweight, and Lamont Roach, who's a champion at 130, moving up, like Hector Luis Garcia did when he fought Tank. The other big difference here is Tank is not that big. He's not the tallest guy. He's not the big. He's been managing his weight for several years, etc. Lamont Roach is actually bigger than him, right? We just seen guys like Kermel Moton miss weight by 16 pounds almost, right? So a lot of these guys fight in lighter weight classes, but their walk around weights are pretty heavy. And Lamont Roach is bigger than Tank Davis, despite him campaigning at a lighter weight class. That's something else people won't. They'll keep bringing up, oh, he's moving somebody up in weight, but then they won't talk about how that somebody he's moving up knows him from the amateurs and is very confident, said he had very close fights, is also bigger than him in terms of his frame and his height, and it looks like his walk around weight, right? These are things that they don't want you to know. So I'm glad Tank is back. The haters, they can weep and, wallow in their sorrows and stuff. I know PBC and Amazon Prime, they're going to do a good job. One of the rumored fights for the undercard is potentially Jose El Rayo Valenzuela versus Gary Antoine Russell, which is a banger. I also like the fight being at the Barclays Center. Tank did a live gate record with Rolly, and both fighters are from the DC area, Baltimore for Tank and DC or whatever for Lamont Roach. So having it in New York, which is not that far, makes a lot of sense. I think Tank wanted to fight in Houston because it's kind of like a bucket list thing. But in terms of the business sense, you probably had PBC and other people saying logistically this fight makes more sense in a New York region, which is Barclay. And it does, because it's, if you're a Lamont Roach fan, you have easier access and travel accommodations going up to New York. I know people for a fact that live in Baltimore or in the DC area, and they travel and got family and stuff, or travel for events to New York. So that's a bit easier, you're on the same time zone and everything, versus you go to Texas, you'll be in a new time zone, a little bit more intensive in terms of handling your flight. You can't just drive up there easily the same way that you can when you're coming from the DMV area to New York. So it is what it is. I like New York for this fight, and I think they'll do a good job on the undercard. And might I tell you, there's a lot of low quality content available online, and I'm blaming the fans, because if you support that, you're not going to like my channel. Bad actors, audio quality is bad. The visual quality is bad. The information is bad. You had content creators making up all these lies and rumors about Tank and who he's fighting. People said he's fighting El Rayo. They said he's fighting this guy, that guy. Then, people are arguing, does the fight deserve to be in the Houston Rockets stadium? And people mad and concerned about the venue, the date. And I told you guys, what is the big rush? The fight is gonna happen. People said, no, the fight's getting canceled, and now it's happening. Just a bunch of lies. Why were people so concerned about the venue, as if they're making money and hosting the event? Like, they need to know. Like, I didn't even understand that. Who cares if it happened in Houston, if it happened in New York? The people involved, Tank's team, have been in the business of boxing for several years. If there was a reason to pull the plug or not have it happen in Houston at this particular time, then that's a decision they made. You have people and content creators and fans, and they were so invested. Why is the fight not happening in November? Why is it not happening in December? Is it going to be in the Houston Rockets venue? And I told you, hold your horses. Tank will announce when he's ready. Boom. This is exactly what he did. They got the reschedule. Press conference is coming right up. Switched the location. They said they had venue issues. Clearly they had some kind of issue with the venue. You know, maybe the place was too big for this fight. I don't know. You know, you got to ask Tank's team and PBC. And when they went to reschedule it, maybe the venue's booked up because the Houston Rockets, or, you know, they had to recalibrate. And since they pushed it back to March, maybe that changed it. And, you know, these things happen. It's boxing. There's a lot of times where, you know, they said that Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, they were going to try to do in the West Coast. Then they seen Canelo was fighting in the West Coast. They moved it to New York. You know, these things happen in the sport of boxing, you know, for one reason or another. I remember Eddie Hearn, when Julio Cesar Chavez ducked a drug test, they went to test him, and the fight was supposed to happen with Danny Jacobs in Vegas. They moved it to Arizona. And then people were throwing shoes and beers and stuff because of Chavez quit in the fight, right? But the point is, there was a venue switch. The intended initial venue, for whatever reason, was switched out. Same thing here. So I didn't understand why people were so concerned, as if that changes. They'll do what makes the most sense for Tank. He's been moved in the appropriate way. He's definitely a star. So it's like, why do you have content creators who are more invested in it? It's just like people are trying to find things to be mad at or nitpick or hate when it comes to Tank Davis. And I never understood that. You know, why did he change the date? Why is it not in Houston? Is it going to be back in Houston? Like, who cares? And anyway, now we know it's happening at the Barclays Center. And what's going to be interesting is, speaking of Haney and Garcia, that fight happened on April 20th, and it didn't beat Tank's record in terms of the live gate. So how you do a fight with Devin Haney, who was undefeated, and Ryan Garcia, who this was a year after he fought Tank, and then you can't beat Tank Rolly record that he set. So it'll be interesting to see if Tank can beat his own record with a Lamont Roach. And that's going to be very telling, because you see a guy like Tank, he's so popping, he's able to fight. Rolly had like 15, 16 fights when he fought Tank, right? So he's able to fight these guys who aren't like necessarily huge household names and still do these great and respectable live gates and very firm business. So it proves that Tank is that dude.